Traveling back to modern Japan in 1860, during the turbulent Edo Shogunate period, also known as the end of the Shogunate era. The overseas powers that completed the Industrial Revolution knocked open Japan's doors with steam warships, bringing turmoil and opportunities to the country. The samurai of the old era fought to the death with their swords, those who shout, expelling foreigners, and, founding the country, vowing to establish a new era of reform activists. Under the name of heavenly execution, countless people have been beheaded, making people tremble with fear. Everyone is holding their swords high for the justice they uphold. In this tumultuous era, Orange Qingdang, an ordinary police officer who traveled through Edo, now Tokyo, possessed a replication talent system. As long as he had competed with others, he could replicate a talent from them regardless of victory or defeat. For example, after a competition with a beautiful young man named Okita Shoji, Jukingdang replicated the talent of swordsmanship talent increased by 50 times that of ordinary people. This is a legend that a small police officer, in this turbulent era, gathered a large number of swordsmen under the era of Yin and Yang, and established a terrifying group of swordsmen. Swordsmen should all feel fortunate that in this era where firearms have replaced swords, it is King of Ren, Zhu Qingdang who leads the new selection team, allowing swords to unleash their final glory and heat. Historians evaluate Orange Green Dang in this way. Keywords of the novel. I have formed the strongest swordsman group without pop-ups. I have formed the strongest swordsman group. Download the complete text, and read the latest chapters of the strongest swordsman group. Chapter 1. Orange Green Ascension. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Orange Green Ascension. He has quite a few titles, such as, King of Humanity, Shogunate Sword, Pillar of the Nation, Friend of France. However, before receiving so many glorious titles, he was just a small transparent official who was contemptuously referred to as Dai Tu Dang. Preface of Volume 1 Qingdang Catching Material Account. On the night of January 12, 1860, the 7th year of the Anjing reign, Edo, the ancient name of Tokyo, now Tokyo, Kitamachi Prefectural Office. When we rush in later, we won't kill those who surrender, and those who resist will take action. This deep male voice reached Qingdang's ears. Qingdang looked at the master of the male voice in confusion. The owner of this male voice just now is a young man around the age of 27. This person has thick eyebrows and big eyes, a righteous face, wearing a kimono and a bamboo hat on his head. The wide kimono sleeves are tied tightly with a thin belt, and there are 2 samurai swords, one long and one short, inserted in his left waist. Where am I? Qingdang turned his bewildered gaze and scanned the surroundings. He found himself in a spacious room, and although it was now night, the light in the room was still quite bright because candles were inserted everywhere. Qingdang looked down at himself. He was sitting on a small horse tie, wearing a feather weave in a wine-red color scheme. The sleeves of the feather weave and the lower kimono were also tied tightly with a thin ribbon. There are also 2 samurai swords, one long and one short, inserted in the left waist, and a strange-looking weapon inserted in the right waist. Looking at the strange weapon inserted in his right waist, a noun popped out of Qingdang's mind. 10 hands. Note 10 hands. A type of Japanese short soldier, which can be understood as a strange-looking iron rod, was a standard weapon for the police of the Edo period, and was a baton-like existence. Qingdang felt his body double heavy and raised his hand to touch his chest, only to find that he was wearing a lock armor under his kimono. What's going on? Exactly. Qingdang turned his gaze full of confused light, looking around in all directions. On both sides of him sat a young man dressed similarly to him. They all have samurai swords and 10 hands in their waists. An ordinary-looking person with half-closed eyes and a half-asleep and half-awake appearance. The other one is handsome, with wide eyes and a stunned expression. And in front of him, there were a total of 20 or so people standing, not like Qingdang who had horses to sit on. They all stood, holding various weapons. Qingdang felt like he was slowly figuring out what was happening now. Am I, in ancient Japan? His mouth gradually widened in shock. Orange Lord, what's wrong? Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? Orange June. A term that is both unfamiliar and feels very familiar. Upon hearing someone calling out the name, Qin Deng immediately instinctively followed the sound. The person calling out this name is the young man with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a face full of righteousness who just shouted, "Those who surrender will not be killed, those who resist will be dealt with properly." Looking at this young man, a name popped up in Qin Deng's mind. There was Ma Shoji. The Kitamachi Prefectural Office is his direct superior. Note: in the Edo period, the name of an official position can be understood as a middle-level official in the government. "We're about to break into the lair of the Renyi Zhong," said Ma Jingzhu, "hurry up and gather your energy." What came out of his mouth was only fluent Japanese, and Qin Deng had never studied Japanese before, but he could hear what he was saying clearly. "Sorry," Qin Deng said subconsciously, "I made you laugh." Subconsciously speaking the same fluent Japanese from Qin Deng's mouth. After a few more puzzled glances at Qin Deng, Yuma ignored him and wrapped his arms around his chest, closing his eyes to rest. Qin Deng is still in a chaotic state that has not yet adapted to the current situation. Take a few deep breaths and try not to panic like this. Just as Qin Deng's emotions slightly calmed down, memory fragments suddenly popped out of his mind. His name is Jukingdeng. I am 18 years old this year. It is one of the Tokumachi Toyotomi of the Kitamachi Prefectural Office in Edo. Kitamachi Prefectural Office, also known as Kitamachi, can be understood as the municipal government of Edo. Dingcho Hui. A department specifically responsible for maintaining urban security. And Tongsheng, on the other hand, is the name of an official position, with a status below that of power, and is a grassroots member of the government. The so-called Kitamachi adheres to the principle of returning to Tongsheng, refers to grassroots personnel responsible for urban security, which can be understood as grassroots police. His mother passed away due to illness when he was still young. His father was originally the Tongsheng of Edo, but unfortunately died of illness 6 months ago. Later, he inherited his father's position and became the new Tongsheng of Kitamachi Prefectural Office. At this moment, he is preparing to rush into the lair of a group of bandits known as Renyi with other colleagues, and catch all these bandits in one go. Although this bandit group has a pleasant name like Renyi, it is actually a group of criminals who burn, kill, loot, and do all sorts of evil deeds. As early as a month ago, the government began to investigate the whereabouts of the Renyi and finally found their lair a while ago. They then gathered their troops tonight, preparing to catch them all tonight. And Qin Deng is one of the members responsible for participating in tonight's battle. While Qin Deng was still digesting the constantly emerging memory fragments in his mind, the door of the room not far away was suddenly opened. A chubby and white-looking man, accompanied by several waiters, entered the room along the open door. After the fat man appeared in the room, the horse suddenly opened its eyes and stood up to salute the fat man, "Your Highness." The rest of the room quickly stood up like a horse and saluted the chubby man. As for Qin Deng, he also instinctively stood up to salute. Tajiro Boy. The name of this chubby man. It is the mayor of Kitabano, which can be understood as the mayor of Edo. Bo Jing waved his hand and gestured for everyone to wave the gift. "Tonight, it's up to you all." Bo Jing said loudly. According to the intelligence transmitted by the informant, the thieves of the Renyi group are still staying at their stronghold. Bo Jing spoke a bunch of words, summarizing them to inspire everyone to work hard tonight to catch the thief, making this arrest operation a complete victory. After the brief mobilization, Hirai gave a glance to a waiter next to him, who also prominently handed him the things he had been holding. Shiba fish slices, squid strips, jikunbu, and a pot of wine. After taking these things, Bo Jing personally handed them over to Yuma. This is one of the rules of the Edo period. When organizing a large-scale arrest operation, the governor of the town would personally hand over the food, drinks, and other items such as firewood and fish slices to the person in charge of the operation to boost morale. After receiving alcohol and other items, the horse ate them clean in just a few bites. Yuma Jun, wish you all success. Bo Jing patted Yuma's shoulders vigorously. We will hang our lives. Ma Lang responded in a voice, then handed the bottle that had been drained in one breath back to Bo Jing. It's time. Ma Chao Qin Dang and others shouted loudly, follow me. After speaking, he held on to the sword on his left waist and rushed out of the room ahead of him. The others in the room followed closely behind. Qin Dang, who was still in a daze, could only run along with the crowd. They rushed out of the office in one breath and, under the cover of night, rushed towards the western suburbs of Edo. After jogging for nearly 20 minutes, led by a horse, they finally arrived at an inconspicuous residential building. At first glance, this residential building seems ordinary. But after their official investigation, it has been determined that this residential building is the lair of the benevolent and righteous people. According to the intelligence provided by the informant, the core members of Renayashong will have a meeting tonight in this residential building. Arriving at the lair of the benevolent and righteous people, the leader, Yuma, without any hesitation, pulled out his long sword from his waist with a miso sound, and then kicked open the door of this residential building with a flying kick. We are officials from the northern Edo region. Feng Gong is searching. After the horse drew its sword and rushed in, the others also drew their swords in their hands, and then rushed in with a black and proud face. Startled drinks and painful screams began to resound in the room. The unpleasant smell of blood began to drift in the air. Qin Deng followed the crowd into the lair of the Renayashong. Not long after entering the old nest, Qin Deng saw a bald man waving his knife wildly, attempting to break through the encirclement of his colleagues. However, as soon as he broke out of the encirclement net, a knife coldly chopped down from behind him, shattering his head. The blood sprayed from the bald wound directly onto the ceiling. The real bloody scene surprised Qin Deng. The colleagues who rushed into the house have scattered and gone to various corners to pursue the members of the Renayashong. Just as Qin Deng was pondering what he should do now, the corner of his eye caught a strange black figure wriggling on his left side. Turning his head to the left, he saw a middle-aged man with his eyes wide open, shouting angrily, and charging towards Qin Deng with a sword. His goal is Qin Deng. Looking at the middle-aged man who was charging towards him with his knife, Qin Deng was first startled. Then, like a conditioned reflex, he pulled out the short knife from his waist that was easy to swing in a narrow space, grabbed the handle with both hands, and quickly set up the knife. A strange sensation appeared in Qin Deng's palms. I feel like it's my first time holding a samurai sword, but I remember clearly how to hold it and how to swing it. Qin Deng happened to have a window next to him. The bright moonlight shone through the window onto Qin Deng's body and his knife. Under the moonlight, Qin Deng's knife reflected a dazzling white rainbow. Go to hell. The shogunate's lackeys. When the middle-aged man rushed to the point where his knife could reach Qin Deng, he let out a roar and heavily swung his knife towards Qin Deng's head. Qin Deng took a deep breath and quickly turned his body to one side. Avoided the knife that the middle-aged man had swung. With a single blow, the middle-aged man relentlessly launched another attack on Qin Deng. Just crossed over, Qin Deng's mind was still chaotic. I don't know exactly when this is and where this place is. But he knew one thing. It was right to lay down the person in front of him who was clearly trying to take his life. Dang! Qin Deng intercepted the middle-aged man's knife with his short knife in his hand. The middle-aged man pushed forward with a force, and Qin Deng pushed back with a force, and the two of them engaged in a struggle. This wrestling did not last long. In just a few seconds, Qin Deng seized the opportunity and kicked the middle-aged man's belly fiercely with his hard knee bones. The middle-aged man let out a mournful scream, and then his whole body shrank into the shape of a shrimp, unable to even hold a knife. And Qin Deng pursued with victory. He took a swift step forward and struck the middle-aged man's side neck with the handle of his short knife. The middle-aged man made a sound like spitting bubbles, then flipped his eyes and collapsed to the ground in a supine position. Seeing that the middle-aged man had finally fallen to the ground, Qin Deng couldn't help but take a breath. However, at this moment, a strange voice suddenly rang out in Qin Deng's mind. Ding! Scan talent, successfully copied talent. Night vision, talent introduction. Even in pitch-black environments, one can clearly see things. The new book sets sail. Seeking all kinds of support. Leopard head cries painfully. JPG, nowadays, websites only value 1 data. Readability rate. That is to say, how many people read this book every day. Books with low follow-up rates will have their recommendation slots removed directly, so please do not throw them into your favorites, QAQ. If you want to keep books, please wait until they are listed before keeping QAQ. Seeking all kinds of support. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Copying the talent system. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Copying the talent system. What sound? Qin Deng. Or rather, Orange Qin Deng, was stunned by the mechanical sound that suddenly rang out in his mind just now and stood still in place. Before he could recall the mechanical sound in detail, he suddenly felt a blur in front of him, and his eyes suddenly became out of focus. After his eyes regained their ability to focus, Qin Deng was surprised to find that his vision was unprecedentedly clear. It's already late at night, and the surrounding light sources could only barely make Qin Deng see the road under his feet. Now, Qin Deng feels that everything in front of him is incredibly clear. Even in the dark corners that were not illuminated by light, Qin Deng could see clearly. While Qin Deng was still shocked by his vision changes, the arrest of Ren Yizhen had quietly ended. According to the intelligence provided by the informant, the total number of Ren Yizhen is only 12 people. Under the sudden attack of Qin Deng and others, they were quickly caught and killed. Those who surrendered obediently were bound with thick ropes, while those who resisted in the corner were punished. Oh! Zhu Jun, did you actually bring down the second leader of Ren Yizhen? Well done. At this moment, the voice of Yuma, Qingding's superior, sounded from behind him. The official positions of the Tongsheng office can be roughly divided into 3 levels, from large to small. Town Tongsheng, Yuli, and Tongsheng. Tongsheng can be understood as the mayor, Tongli can be understood as middle-level cadres, and Tongsheng is grassroots personnel. Generally speaking, one is concentric with 2 to 3 force tubes. Qin Deng is a direct subordinate of Yuma, who is in power and under the direct jurisdiction of Yuma. Qin Deng turned his head to look at the sound, and saw a horse with a long knife still dripping blood, slowly walking towards him. After walking to the middle-aged man who had just been knocked down by Qin Deng and was now unconscious, a horse bent down and briefly examined his injuries before standing up and saying to Qin Deng. Zhu Jun, you did a great job and rarely achieved great success. You successfully captured the second in command of the Ren Yizhen. This guy is the second in command of the Ren Yizhen, known as the Cat's Eye. Cat's Eyes? Qin Deng asked in confusion. This guy is said to be a strange person who can see things clearly like a cat even at night. A horse pointed to his own eyes, so he is called Cat's Eye. After finishing speaking, a horse patted Qin Deng's shoulder. Alright, don't stand foolishly. Hurry up and take these thieves back together. Take them back early, so we can go home and rest early. Oh, good. Qin Deng nodded subconsciously. Under their surprise attack, a group of 12 righteous and benevolent people were captured alive, with 4 deaths and 2 serious injuries. The second in command who was knocked down by Qin Deng was one of the captured ones. Those who have already died should be casually wrapped in straw mats, and together with the seriously injured, they should be transported back to the post office by cart first, and then the surviving thieves should be taken back. After completing this troublesome task, it was almost half an hour later. After successfully escorting the remaining members of the benevolent and righteous group back to the post office, the people who participated in tonight's arrest operation were summoned together by Yuma. Everyone. Well done. With a smile on his face, all the thieves of the Yizhen have been caught. Your Excellency is very satisfied with our performance tonight. So. There is a horse-drawn long tone. Lord Fengxing just told me. Let everyone involved in tonight's operation take a day off tomorrow. As soon as the words of the horse were finished, cheers erupted one after another. Qingdang did not join the cheering crowd because his head was still in a state of chaos. All right, let's all go home. Ma waved his hand, gesturing for everyone to be quiet. I can handle some of the followed-up work from now on. The cheers exploded again. After Yuma announced its dissolution, everyone left Fengxing in groups of 3 or 2 and returned to their respective homes. Qingdang also walked slowly out of the office with a bewildered expression on his face. He didn't know. From just now on, there were 3 samurai wearing hats lurking in a dark alley not far from the place where they were being executed. After Qingdang left the Fengxing station, these 3 warriors held their swords in their respective waists, cat waist tied, and quietly followed Qingdang behind. After Qingdang and the 3 warriors who followed Qingdang were far away from Fengxing, the officials who had just been responsible for transporting the dead and injured personnel of the Yizhen breathed hot air into their frozen hands while chatting with each other. Oh my, this benevolent and righteous group has finally been destroyed. Without the benevolence and righteousness, Edo should be able to become more or less peaceful. I don't know when we will be able to eradicate those people who keep their mouths shut and say, expelling the barbarians and heavenly punishment. Those people are really terrifying. I heard that when Yamada from Yinwei Fong returned home the night before yesterday, he was ambushed by members of the expelling the barbarians faction and almost lost his life. How could the people of the anti-Japanese faction target Yamada? It is said that it is because Yamada once publicly declared his support for learning Western medical skills. Hey, those anti-foreign faction people keep their mouths shut and anti-foreign, but in the end, most of the people they hurt and killed are Chinese. If they dare to jump into the sea and attack the steam warships of the United States, then I still respect them as heroes. Alright, stop talking about these frustrating topics. Let's go and have a drink. Qingdang walked back home based on the memories in his mind. But as soon as he left Fengxing, Qingdang stopped and leaned against the street. He doesn't have the mood to slowly walk back to his memory of home now. He just wants to quickly figure out what the situation is at this moment. Qingdang vigorously rubbed his temples on both sides, recalling how he had traveled to ancient Japan before crossing over. Qingdang vividly remembers that he was a young man who had just graduated from the police academy. In his past life, he had always had a great longing for the profession of police. When he didn't even know the difference between boys and girls, he set his sights on becoming a police officer. And his great ambition was very fortunate to be realized. In his past life, he was a very typical child from another family. When I was in primary and secondary school, my grades consistently ranked among the top. During the college entrance examination, I successfully entered the police academy with excellent to exaggerated results. After enrolling in the police academy, his performance remained impressive. Upon graduation, he successfully completed his career in the police academy with an excellent comprehensive score of first in all levels. And just 3 days after graduating from the police academy, he crossed into this unfamiliar era he remembers. Before traveling, he was leisurely reading in his own study. Looking at it, I suddenly felt a bit tired, so I lay back on the book chair and started taking a nap. When I opened my eyes again, I turned into Jukingdeng, the police officer of ancient Japan, and then I participated in an arrest operation in a daze. So did I sleep until I crossed over. Qingdeng's face was covered in black lines. Qing Deng, who had already given up thinking about how he had traveled, took a deep breath and continued to massage his temples on both sides. He is currently searching for the memory of Yuan Jukingdeng. He wants to figure out when he was in Japan. Qing Deng perfectly inherited all the memories of Yuan Jukingdeng, so with just a little recollection, he remembered when it was now. The 7th year of Anjing. What year is the AD? I don't know, perhaps it is because the era of the year AD has not yet become popular in Japan. The current ruler of Japan is a behemoth called the Tokugawa Shogunate, also known as the Edo Shogunate. No way. I have no idea what year I am currently in Japan. The black lines on Qingdeng's face have become more numerous in the memory of Yuan Ju Qing Deng, only the current era name is known, and there is no concept of the AD era. Qing Deng couldn't predict the current time based on the era title, as he didn't know much about Japanese history. He has never been interested in history, and he knows nothing about Japanese history. After also giving up on figuring out how many years he was currently in AD, Qing Deng began to think about what the mechanical sound that had sounded in his mind before was. Is this the so-called system? In his past life, Qing Deng has also read some online novels and is not unfamiliar with the so-called system. After trying to silently recite the system in his heart, Qing Deng saw a virtual screen emerge in front of him. Name: Orange Qing Deng. Current talents: Night vision. The content on this virtual screen is surprisingly scarce, just 2 lines of text. Qing Deng noticed a small question mark at the end of the line marked with his name. He tried to focus his attention on the small question mark, and then it expanded into a new virtual screen. Copy talent system usage rules. After fighting a person with a special talent, regardless of victory or defeat, one can copy a talent from them. Note: not everyone has a special talent, the vast majority of people are ordinary people without talent. If the opponent has multiple talents, they will be randomly copied, free. Anyone can only copy a talent from them once. Once a talent is copied from someone, even if they have other talents, they cannot copy it again. When the talent is activated, the entry on the system interface will appear in a glowing state, 5. The number of talents that the host can have, regardless of the upper limit, but will not have the same talent, 6. Copying talents takes time and requires fighting with opponents for at least 10 seconds before copying talents. When the host meets certain conditions, they can awaken new talents on their own new book seeking various support. End of this chapter. Have you ever seen the protagonist in Chapter 3 who almost got chopped to death right after crossing over? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Have you ever seen the protagonist in Chapter 3 who almost got chopped to death right after crossing over? What should I say? Qing Deng now only feels that this system is too approachable. Surprisingly, even the usage rules are clearly marked, making it clear at a glance. Is this the legendary system? Qing Deng patted his face hard to see if he had dreamed, but the piercing pain on his cheeks and the virtual screen that had not disappeared from his eyes told him that he had not dreamed. He has a real cheat. Qing Deng felt a smile emerge from his face along the slightly raised corners of his mouth. The unease that had been lingering in his heart due to traveling to unfamiliar environments and times dissipated slightly. Do I need to fight my opponent for more than 10 seconds before I can replicate my talent? So, when I was fighting with the second in command of the Renayashong just now, the fighting time did indeed exceed 10 seconds, awakening one's own talents. Qing Deng is most concerned about the last rule of use. When a certain condition is met, such as a change in mood, new talents can be awakened on their own. It's too vague to say that once certain conditions are met, new talents will awaken. After thinking for a while, I realized that I was thinking about it and couldn't come up with a reason. So I stopped thinking and focused on my current talent. Current talents. Night vision. There is a golden light shining around the term night vision in the system interface. I believe this is what the 4th point of the usage rule mentions. When the talent is activated, the entry on the system interface will appear in a glowing state. Qingdang is now in a dim environment, so the talent of night vision is activated on its own. Qingdang currently only has this talent. It was just acquired after he chopped down the second leader of the benevolent and righteous group with a single sword. Looking at the newly replicated talent he currently has, Qingdang's mood is a bit subtle. The only talent he currently possesses is just copied from someone else. This represents his body, which had no special talents before, and is a pure ordinary person. However, after self-elucidating, Qingdang also felt relieved. The introduction to the use of this system also mentioned that not everyone has special talents, and the vast majority of people are ordinary people without any special features. My current body happens to be just an ordinary and unremarkable one. Qingdang began to carefully examine his newly replicated talent. It has to be said that night vision is a highly practical talent. In this era, there is naturally no such thing as street lamps. Unless you go to the Never-Night City, in Jiyuan, it is basically impossible to go out at night without lighting a lantern. At this moment, Qingdang was on a secluded path, with the surrounding houses and shops tightly closed, and the only light source being the lantern in his hand. The light was so dim, but everything around Qingdang could still be seen clearly, just like during the day. This should be the effect that this talent has brought him. The ability to see things clearly even in the darkness where he can't see his fingers. Who? At this moment, a cold wind blew in. The sudden cold wind penetrated into the gaps in Qingdang's clothes, causing Qingdang to shiver uncontrollably. It's so cold. Qingdang tightened his feather-woven collar. Note: Hanyu. The coat in a kimono, according to the memory of Yuanzhu Qingdang, today is January 12th, which is in the depths of winter. After feeling as if the surroundings were getting colder and colder, Qingdang took a hot breath from his hands, then picked up the lantern and stood up. Hurry up and go home. With the talent of night vision, Qingdang actually doesn't need lanterns to illuminate at all. Just as Qingdang was pondering whether to extinguish the flames in the lantern, cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. The sound of grass shoes rubbing against the ground suddenly echoed from Qingdang's right side. Qingdang instinctively followed the sound. I saw 3 samurai wearing hats running towards him quickly. As Qingdang cast his gaze on these 3 people, they happened to be all leaning their hands towards the swords around their waists. Only the clanging sound of 3 swords unsheathed sounded one after another, and these 3 people drew their swords in their hands, exuding a fierce aura. Watching these 3 warriors charging towards him with knives, Qingdang's face suddenly changed. These people were quite fast, and in just the blink of an eye, the person at the forefront, a fat man, had already rushed to Qingdang's front. Orange Qingdang. You are a traitor who worships barbarians and flatters D. The chubby man shouted as he swung his knife towards Qingdang's face. Take your life. Heaven's punishment. The fat man's knife had already struck, and Qingdang had no time to draw it. Ordinary people may have been so scared that they forget to move when they encounter such a situation. But Qingdang. Precisely not such an ordinary person. In his past life, he was a top student who graduated from the police academy with the highest score in his class. The consciousness cultivated by years of police academy career is reviving at this moment. Qingdang's eyes flashed with a sharp light. Although he didn't have time to draw his sword, he still had the most primitive weapon. Qingdang threw away the lantern in his hand, raised his arms, grabbed the right hand of the person holding the knife with his left hand, and the left shoulder with his right hand, using his previous life's skill. Capture. Qingdang was able to graduate from the police academy as the top student in his previous life, and his grades in various courses were naturally outstanding. Especially in the police physical education classes that teach courses such as baton skills, Qingdang's performance can be described as unparalleled. Not only that, but Qingdang's biggest extracurricular hobbies in his past life were fitness and exercise. When he was studying at the police academy, Qingdang was a famous devil muscle man in the school. When he bent his arm, the biceps he squeezed out were larger than a baby's head. In addition to fitness and exercise, Qingdang also has a strong interest in unarmed combat. I have dabbled in many types of unarmed fighting techniques, and the most skilled fighting techniques are capture and free combat. Qingdang originally intended to use the grappling technique to remove the fat man's knife and directly lay it down on the ground, but to his surprise, he couldn't even break the fat man. The strength of this body is also too weak. The combat skills of previous lives can be perfectly reproduced, but the strength of the body cannot. His new body, although still decent in height, is a whopping 1.75 meters, but his muscle mass is seriously insufficient, his figure is too thin, and his weight is only about 120 pounds. With all his strength, he can't compete with this chubby guy. Unable to lower the fat man or remove his knife, they were caught in a dilemma of wrestling with him. At this moment, the other two companions of the fat man killed. Qingdang's current two hands are used to wrestle with this chubby guy, and he doesn't have a third or fourth hand to deal with the other two enemies. So Qingdang made a decisive decision and pushed forward with all his might, pushing the fat man in front of him away and then taking a few steps back in one breath. Although Qingdang had retreated as quickly as he could, his left thigh was accidentally grazed by someone's knife, and the fabric on his leg was cut open, leaving a thin wound on his skin. Now, with no time to care about the wound, Qingdang pulled out his knife in his hand after distancing himself from these three unwelcome guests. If someone else is empty-handed, you take out the police equipment, and if someone else is armed, you take out the gun. In summary, no matter when and where you have weapons, use them as much as possible and use stronger weapons than criminals. Don't foolishly engage in physical combat with people or confront criminals. There is no need to talk about martial arts. In his previous life, when Qingdang was studying at a police academy, a senior once said so earnestly to him. After listening to the senior's heartfelt words, Qingdang chased the senior and asked, "Senior, what if the criminal has a gun?" "We once sent an armored vehicle to shoot at a gunman," the senior replied in a serious tone. "If only there were guns and armored vehicles now." Qingdang clenched the knife in his hand while regretfully reviewing the honest teachings of the senior. The capture technique that Qingdang used to catch the fat man in one breath just now, as well as the dazzling knife in Qingdang's hand, suppressed these three unwelcome guests. They three carried knives and played four-person turn with Qingdang, but no one dared to step forward for a long time. If they don't come up, Qingdang naturally won't rush forward as if his life is short. If you have the same physique as in your past life, then there is still hope to touch these three people in front of you. Through the brief confrontation with the chubby guy just now, Qingdang had already seen that playing hard against these three people with his current weak body was completely like playing a big knife in his pocket. Enough to make a few bites. Until now, Qingdang finally had Yu and leisurely scrutinized the faces of these three people. But also looked lonely. These three people are all wearing hats with deep brims, and under the cover of the hats, only the lower half of their faces can be seen, not the upper half. Who are these people? Why suddenly drew a knife and rushed forward to chop at me? Is it the enemy of the original owner of this body? What should we do now? Playing 3 games at a time, even if you win, you're afraid you'll suffer a lot of damage. Qingdang was pondering hard on a way out of the current predicament. A few drops of cold sweat seeped out from Qingdang's forehead, then flowed down his nose bridge and cheeks. Just as Qingdang was pondering how to overcome the dilemma in front of him, a series of sounds, akin to heavenly sounds, rang out for Qingdang at this moment. Hey! What happened? Why is it so noisy? Ah. There's a warrior fighting. They've all drawn their swords. Are the warriors fighting? The warriors are fighting. Go and take a look. The sound of fighting between Qingdang and these 3 uninvited guests woke up the surrounding residents. Many daring people came out to join the fun. Someone came over, and the three warriors looked at each other for a while before the fat man withdrew his sword from its sheath and said, "Withdraw." After speaking, the fat man took the lead in holding the knife and quickly left. And as he left, the fat man didn't forget to turn his head and shout at Qingdang. "Orange Qingdang. You, a traitor who admires the barbarians and flatters the people, wait for me. We will eventually kill you one day." New book set sail, seeking various support, Leopard Head cries. JPG, requesting recommended tickets. Seeking collection. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Era of Bloody Storm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Era of Bloody Storm. After the fat man left, the other two immediately put away their knives and followed closely behind him. In no time, the figures of these three people disappeared from Qingdang's field of vision. Watching these three people leave, Qingdang breathed a sigh of relief. He did not pursue these three people. He went after those three people after his brain twitched. If these three people were unarmed, Qingdang still had some confidence in using his previous life's combat skills to knock them down, but the problem is that all three of them were wielding knives. Moreover, I don't know the details of the others, so I chased after them recklessly, and there were also worries such as being ambushed. The sudden attack just now ended in such a peaceful way, which was fortunate in the midst of misfortune. The originally tense nerves relaxed in one breath. Until now, Qingdang realized that his clothes on the back had been slightly soaked in cold sweat at some point earlier. More and more daring, melon-eating masses gathered around at this moment, looking at Qingdang, who was still holding a knife in his hand, with puzzled and vigilant eyes. "Don't be nervous, everyone," Qingdang quickly said as he withdrew his sword from its scabbard. "I follow the principle of Tongsheng in the designated town of Neon Kita-cho. Jukingdang." After speaking, Qingdang flicked his Yuji's right lower hem, revealing the 10 hands with red tassels attached to the handle inserted in his right waist, as well as the seal cage hanging on his right waist. Note: a small box-type lacquerware that became a common decoration worn by samurai warriors on their waists during the Edo period. Although mainly used for decoration, it also has some practicality. It can be used to store small items such as change and keys inside, and can be used as a pocket. Qingdang's right waist has been adorned with a Fengxing Office Staff Special Seal Cage issued by the Fengxing Office. The black body is adorned with golden sunflowers and various decorative patterns on the front. Only warriors working in the field have such a seal cage. The use of tokens was not popular in Japan during the Edo period, and this seal cage assumed some of the functions of tokens. In Qingdang, it was revealed that only samurai who served in the Ministry of Rights would possess the seal cage, as well as blunt weapons that only police officers would carry. 10 hands later, the vigilance and confusion in the eyes of the surrounding melon-eating crowd disappeared in half. "I was just attacked by a thug just now, it wasn't a big deal," Qingdang continued. "Don't everyone gather here. Let's all disperse. These melon-eating masses who dare to leave their homes are basically here to join the fun." Seeing that there was not much excitement to join in, they immediately dispersed. Successfully dismissing these melon-eating masses, Qingdang breathed a sigh of relief once again. Who were those three people just now? Say I am a traitor who worships and flatters the barbarians. Qingdang wiped the cold sweat from his forehead while searching for the memories of Yuanju Qingdang. In just a moment, he found the identities of those three people in the memory of Yuanju Qingdang. After figuring out the identities of those three people just now, Qingdang's face immediately showed black lines. Edo, 8 Ding Hori. Following the memory of Yuanju Qingdang, Qingdang arrived at a place called Ba Ding Hori. This is a samurai settlement, and almost all the officials in the shogunate live in this neighborhood called Bading Hori. Although it was his first time walking this path back home, Qingdang had a strange feeling of familiarity due to his memory of Yuanju Qingdang. After turning 2 small paths in a row, Qingdang Station arrived at the door of an ordinary small house. Before entering the door, Qingdang once again scanned the surroundings with a vigilant gaze. After confirming that no one was really following him, he reached out to pull the door. "I'm back." Dong, dong, dong. As soon as Qingdang opened the door and entered the small house, he heard the sound of footsteps coming from inside. Subsequently, an elderly man with white hair and beard appeared from the depths of the house. This person slid over to Qingdang in a shovel-like posture and then knelt down to salute Qingdang. "Young master, welcome back. Come on, please put on your sword." "Ah. Young master. What's wrong with your leg?" "It's nothing," Qingdang smiled bitterly at the old man. "It's just that he was attacked again by the anti-barbarian faction just now. This old man's name is Jubingwei, and he is the youngest in Qingdang's family. The so-called little one can be understood as a servant, who is a servant in the samurai family. Jubingwei is considered an old man in their Orange family. Before Qingdang's mother even married his father, Jubingwei came to the Orange family to serve his father. After the death of Qingdang's father, Jubingwei began to serve Qingdang. By this calculation, the 9 soldiers' guard has been serving their family for almost 30 years. For an elderly person who has served their family for most of his life and is still working diligently to this day, Yuan Jukingdang has always respected him, so the relationship between the master and servant is particularly harmonious. Qingdang has no brothers and sisters, and has not married yet. In the current situation where his parents have passed away and there are no other family members, Jubingwei is currently the only family member of Qingdang. After hearing the word anti-barbarian faction from Qingdang's mouth, Jubingwei's face immediately turned white. Also, is it the anti-barbarian faction again? Those people are really too extreme. Young master, you just worked at the embassy of the United States for a period of time. Why are you attacking you so repeatedly? If you really want to fight against foreigners, they will go and chop off the real barbarians. Ah! Young master, come in quickly. I will bandage your wound. In this era, Japan naturally did not have bandages. In this era, Japanese people used something called burlap to stop bleeding in bandage wounds. The injury on Qingdang's leg is just a minor one and does not affect his daily activities. He only needs some rest time to recover as usual. As the 9 soldiers' guard used a slightly clumsy method to bandage the wound on Qingdang's leg, Qingdang vigorously rubbed his furrowed brow. So what is the situation now? Just as I crossed over, I fell into a desperate situation where I could be chopped to death by a group of lunatics at any time. After searching for the memories of Yuanju Qingdang, just now, Qingdang finally identified the identities of the 3 warriors who attacked him just now. They are people of the anti-barbarian faction. What is the anti-barbarian faction? That's a long story. Over 1,000 years ago, the Eastern powers across the sea had entered the Sui and Tang dynasties, while Japan was still in a backward era of slavery. After realizing the huge gap between their own country and the Sui and Tang empires across the sea, the Japanese rulers at that time, in order to seek wealth and strength, decided to comprehensively study the advanced system and culture of the Sui and Tang empires in 645 AD. This reform is known as the Great Transformation and Reform in history. The Great Reform and Reform can be said to have completely transformed Japan, transitioning from the era of slavery to the feudal era in one breath. Not long after the Great Wall Reform, Japan moved its capital to Nara, and the period during which Nara became its capital was known as the Nara era, 710.794. In 794, Japan once again moved its capital to Pyongyang, now Kyoto, and the period during which Pyongyang was the capital was known as the Pyongyang era, 794.1192. The Emperor of Japan during the Nara and Heian eras, like the emperors of China, was a true head of state and held great power. However, in the mid to late Heian period, the power of the samurai family, that is, the samurai group, began to rise. The martial arts forces were originally just a group of rough people responsible for warfare, but in the late Heian period, they gradually formed alliances, rose up, and began to control the court, disregarding the emperor. The samurai group has gradually transformed into a new and significant class in Japan. The samurai class. Finally, by the end of the 12th century, the Genji samurai group completely overshadowed the emperor and took over the power of the court. Due to its unique national conditions, Japan cannot arbitrarily abolish the emperor or change dynasties like China. At that time, abolishing the imperial clan that had existed for hundreds of years was an extremely difficult and risky task. So the leader of the Genji samurai group, Genrei Asahi, established the shogunate system. He obtained the position of General of the Conquering Barbarians from the emperor, retained the emperor and the court, but established a new government in the Kamakura region. This new government is known as the shogunate. Because it was built in Kamakura, it is commonly known as the Kamakura shogunate. The head of the shogunate is the shogun of the shogunate, and the official position of the shogun is passed down from generation to generation by the descendants of the Genji clan. The nominal head of state and the governing body of the country are still the emperor and the Kyoto court. But the actual rulers and institutions managing this country are the General of Conquering Barbarians and the shogunate located in Kamakura. Since then, the shogunate general has become the de facto emperor of Japan, and the title of General of Conquering Barbarians has also become a title that represents the supreme authority of the world, which countless ambitious families want to seize. The Kamakura shogunate only existed for over 100 years, 1185.1333. This period of time during which Japan was ruled by the Kamakura shogunate is known as the Kamakura era. After the decline of the Kamakura shogunate, the imperial court led by the emperor once attempted to regain national power, but it ultimately failed. The national power was taken away by another samurai group, the Ashikaga clan. Ashikaga eliminated the Kamakura shogunate and established the second shogunate in Japanese history in the Muromachi area. The Muromachi shogunate. Seizing the official position and national power of the General of Conquering Barbarians, from the Genji clan, the emperor and the court continued to serve as mascots. The period during which the Muromachi shogunate ruled Japan was known as the Muromachi era, 1336.1573, due to its unique political system. By the end of the Muromachi era, powerful powers in various regions rose up and rebelled, ushering in an unprecedented era of war and turmoil in Japan. The Warring States period, 1467.1603. This is a chaotic world where various feudal lords Seng and I appear, and national hegemony is being contested by each other. In the end, the Tokugawa clan laughed to the end. A samurai named Tokugawa Ieyasu successfully unified the country in 1603, and then established the third shogunate in Japanese history in Edo, now Tokyo. The Edo Shogunate. The name of the General of Conquering Barbarians fell on the head of the Tokugawa clan. And this is also the era that Qingdang is currently in. The Edo period ruled by the Edo Shogunate. In the Edo period that Qingdang is currently in, the shogunate system can be said to have been perfected to almost perfection. At this time, Ping and Jing had already been renamed as Kyoto. The emperor and the court are still preserved in Kyoto, but have become complete mascots with no real power to speak of. Simply put, Japan now has two governments. The court in Kyoto and the Edo shogunate in Edo. The head of the Kyoto court is the emperor, while the head of the Edo shogunate is a shogun who has been inherited by the Tokugawa clan for generations. The former is a mascot, the nominal head of state, while the latter is the true ruler and emperor of Japan today. Qingdang is unaware of Japanese history and does not know the approximate year of the AD, but based on the memory of Zhenju Qingdang, it can be inferred that the current period is roughly the mid to late 19th century. Because 7 years ago, the American steam fleet knocked on Japan's door. Since there is a steam fleet and the invasion of European and American powers, then the time point is mostly in the mid-19th century or later. Not long after the establishment of the Edo Shogunate, in order to ensure national stability, the shogunate issued a lockdown order, and Japan entered a state of seclusion, only maintaining contact with China, North Korea, and the Netherlands. Under the lockdown order, Japan spent over 200 years of peaceful time. Until 7 years ago, in the 6th year of the Qianyong era, 1853, U.S. Navy Brigadier General Perry led his fleet to knock on the door of Japan. Because the fleet brought by Perry contained black steam warships, people referred to this event as the Black Ship Incident. Japan, still an ancient society, could not possibly be a rival to the United States, which had already undergone the baptism of the Industrial Revolution. Under the tyranny of the United States, Japan was forced to accept the American Treaty of Amity. The door of Japan is now open. The impact of the Black Boat incident on the shogunate officials and civilians was too great. Some people have recognized the gap between Japan and overseas powers, and proposed to learn from the advanced systems and technologies of Western powers, just as they did 1,000 years ago when they comprehensively studied the Eastern powers. They demand, reform and learn from foreign countries to strengthen themselves. However, the number of people in Japan who currently have this concept of learning from the West is pitifully small. The lockdown order, that has lasted for nearly 250 years, has made Japan, from meat-eaters to ordinary civilians, narrow-minded and arrogant. In the face of incoming Western powers, the most popular and sought-after trend among the Japanese people at this time is that these foreigners are all barbaric barbarians, and they must be expelled one by one. Fight! 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 These proposals aim to drive out the Western powers with the slogan of expelling foreigners. Therefore, these advocates of suppressing the barbarians are collectively referred to as the anti-barbarian faction. The idea of expelling foreigners is currently the most mainstream ideology, and there is no one. Although those who advocate for the anti-barbarian movement are collectively referred to as the anti-barbarian faction, there are many different schools of thought within the anti-barbarian faction. Some people have a more moderate mindset and advocate for the peaceful expulsion of Westerners. However, currently the vast majority of anti-barbarians advocate the use of force to drive out all the major powers led by the Americans. In the past 7 years, as more and more foreigners have set foot on Japanese soil and advocate for the use of force to suppress foreigners, their thoughts have become increasingly radical and extreme. Until today, there has even been a voice in the anti-Japanese faction that advocates the West, believes that Western things are good, or those who work for Westerners are all traitors who worship and flatter the people. These national thieves should also be killed. Such absurd and extreme ideas are gradually spreading, and more people are adhering to them. The 3 warriors who just assassinated Qingdang are radical anti-barbarians with such extreme thinking. Why do the radical anti-foreigner faction target Qingdang? The reason behind this is that Yuan Zhuqingdang worked at the U.S. Embassy for 7 days more than a month ago. The new book set sail. Requesting recommended tickets. Seeking collection. The Japanese pronunciation of the protagonist Orange Qingdang is. The romanized sound is. Tafibana Aoto. So Qingdang's full name looks very short, with only 3 Chinese characters, but the pronunciation is very long, with a total of 7 sounds. The surname Orange alone has 4 pronunciations. End of this chapter. Have you ever seen this kind of hellish opening in Chapter 5? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Have you ever seen this kind of hellish opening in Chapter 5? 7 years ago, in the 6th year of the K era, 1853, the American fleet knocked on Japan's door and signed the first unequal treaty in Japanese history. The Treaty of Amity between Japan and the United States. From then on, great powers such as Britain and France came one after another like cats smelling a fishy smell, coming to Japan to sign various treaties. 2 years ago, in the 5th year of the Ansei era, 1858, Japan signed a new treaty with the United States. The Treaty of Friendship and Commerce between Japan and the United States. In this treaty, Japan agreed to the United States sending envoys to Edo, and the American embassy was officially established in Japan. These foreign embassies are naturally the key targets of attention for radical anti-barbarians. They have launched countless forms of harassment, big or small, against the embassy and those working there. At present, the idea of suppressing foreigners is spreading more and more widely, and more people are joining the anti-foreigner movement. The attacks on embassies are also becoming stronger and stronger. If the envoys and others inside the embassy are killed by the radical anti-barbarians, it would be a terrible international issue, so the shogunate is determined to add security to the vicinity of the embassy. But recruiting guards ultimately takes time. Therefore, while waiting for the recruitment of guards to be completed, Yuan Jukingdeng was transferred to the U.S. Embassy as a temporary guard a month ago. Yuan Jukingdeng worked as a temporary guard at the U.S. Embassy for a total of 7 days, during which he did nothing. I just patrol inside the embassy every day, but I am still targeted and despised by the radical anti-barbarians. They believe that this act of helping foreigners is simply unforgivable. It's a national thief. Heavenly punishment. Just now, it was not the first time that the radical anti-foreigner faction had assassinated Qingdang. 10 days ago, they launched their first assassination attempt on Yuan Jukingdeng. Yuanju Qingdang is very lucky. He was surrounded by 4 assassins at that time, and just as he was about to have his head chopped off, he suddenly came to help the melon-eating crowd like he did tonight. Assassins who didn't want their appearance exposed quickly fled. That time, Yuan Jukingdeng really almost died. The assassins held their knives high while loudly recounting the so-called crimes of Yuan Jukingdeng. Thanks to the meticulous actions of these assassins, Yuan Jukingdeng would not even know why he was targeted by the radical anti-barbarian faction. Alright. Jiu Bingwei carefully checked the burlap he had wound on Qingdang and confirmed that there were no problems. He nodded and said, "It's wrapped. Young master, please check if it's too tight or too loose." "Wrapped perfectly, Jiu Bingwei, thank you for your hard work." "Ah." Jiu Bingwei leaned his right ear towards Qingdang with a bewildered expression on his face. Upon seeing this, Qingdang forced a bitter smile and then leaned his mouth towards the 9 soldiers' guard. "I said. It's packed perfectly. Jiu Bingwei. Thank you so much." "Oh." Jiu Bingwei nodded lightly as if waking up from a dream. "As long as there's no discomfort, it's okay." This elderly person, who has served the Orange family for over 30 years, has been struggling with his ears and forgetful since he got older. Talking to the 9 soldiers with a volume that seemed to roar at their enemies. This can be considered one of the daily scenes of their Orange family. Qingdang stood up and jumped a few times in place. After confirming that the leg bandage was not a major issue and would not affect Qingdang's movements, Qingdang looked up and let out a long sigh. Upon seeing this, the 9 soldiers' guard quickly approached. "Young master, you have worked so hard tonight. Once again, you have been attacked by the anti-barbarian sect. You must have been frightened." Yes." Qingdang let out a long sigh again and raised his hand to scratch his hair. "I was really scared. I almost got chopped to death just as I crossed over, so what is my situation now?" "Just as I crossed over, I was targeted by a group of terrorists. That group of radical anti-barbarians, from any perspective, are undoubtedly terrorists. And it's the kind of terrorist who can't reason with them and they are determined to kill you." When Qingdang feels melancholy about his current situation, dong dong dong. A very rough knocking suddenly came from the door. The sudden knocking on the door sounded like magic, making the face of the 9 soldiers' guard instantly turn pale. "Here, here." The 9 soldiers' guard responded with a hurried response and rushed towards the door. Qingdang, who didn't know why, followed behind the 9 soldiers' guard with a bewildered expression. Wow! The wooden door was pulled open. Standing outside the room are 3 young people. The young man led by him was dressed in plain-colored clothing, wearing a low-brimmed bamboo hat on his head. After the 9 soldiers' guard opened the door, he immediately lifted the hat on his head, revealing a face that, although its features were delicate, had been damaged by a huge scar pulled from the left ear to the right ear, which had damaged its beauty. "Good evening, Mr. Orange." Scarface smiled and warmly greeted Qingdang standing behind the 9 soldiers' guard. "As you can see, I'm here again. Have you saved enough money this time?" "Save money? Who are these people?" The bewildered expression on his face became even more intense, and he quickly searched for the memory of Yuanzhu Qingdang. As Qingdang struggled to search through the memories of Yuanzhu Qingdang, the frightened 9 soldiers' guard took 3 steps back to the back room, then walked back quickly from the back room. When he returned, Jubing Wei had a small paper bag in his hand. "Here you are." Jubing Wei stuffed this small paper package into Scarface's pocket. Scarface opens the paper bag. Inside the bag, there is a lot of money. "Is it just that little this time?" Scar's face curled its lips. "It's too little, isn't it?" "Please be accommodating," said the 9th Army Guard Company busily. Scared Face glanced at the 9 soldiers' guard. "Well, then let's make some adjustments this time." After speaking, he used his fingers to play with the money in his hand, quickly checked the amount, and then took off a small abacus from his waist. Deduct the money you paid back this time. Mr. Orange, your father's current gambling debt is 520 taels of gold." The scarred face, who had played with the abacus, smiled and stuffed the money just given by the 9 soldiers' guard into his arms. "The debt is only 520 taels left now. Congratulations, congratulations, keep working hard, Mr. Orange." The scarred face lowered the hat on the head. "I have received the money, so I won't bother you anymore. I'll come back later. Please make sure to prepare a more decent amount at that time. The money you prepared tonight is really too little. If it were normal, I wouldn't even bother to collect it. But for the sake of your efforts to repay the money all along, let's make an accommodation tonight. Please make sure not to use such a little money to fool me again next time. Otherwise..." Scar's face turned towards Qingdang with a rather sunny and warm smile, causing both eyes to squint into a slit. "You probably don't want to go to those days where you can't even sleep well, do you? Wishing you a good night's sleep tonight." After speaking, Scarface pressed down the hat on top of his head, then waved his hand and led the 2 young people behind him to leave confidently. Qingdang stared blankly at the back of Scarface as he left. Just now, he finally digested the memories of Yuanzhu Qingdang about debt and found out who this Scarface was. They are Yakuza. In modern terms, the scarred face just now is a so-called gangster. Qingdang, who graduated from a police academy in his previous life, is already familiar with the underworld. "In my past life, when I was studying at a police academy, a senior student who specialized in studying black and evil forces and Qingdang co-educated Japanese gangsters. The origin of the Japanese mafia can be traced back to the Edo period, which is the current era of Edo. The predecessor of the Japanese mafia was a group of lower-class members in the Edo period, who huddled together for survival. But gradually, the organizations of these lower-class people huddled together for survival began to deteriorate. They began to engage in shady but highly profitable activities such as pornography, gambling, and borrowing, in order to seek profits and strengthen themselves. There was no such thing as a mafia or gang during the Edo period. At this time, people disdainfully referred to these individuals engaged in activities with a mafia-like nature as Yakuza. Yakuza is a transliteration of the Japanese vocabulary, meaning bad person or loser. In the 20th century, Japanese gangsters named themselves Jidao in order to put gold on their faces. Why did Yakuza come to ask Qingdang for money? This is a long story again. It's all because Qingdang has a bastard father, Qingdang's father. Zhu Longji was originally a mentally sound, outgoing, and well-behaved middle-aged man without any bad habits. However, fate played tricks on him. He accidentally became addicted to gambling a year ago. People who are addicted to gambling all have the same characteristic. They always believe that they will definitely win the next game, and once they get to the gambling table, they will never leave until they have nothing to gamble on. Zhu Longji kept gambling and gambling until 6 months ago when he suddenly contracted an incurable disease and died of illness before finally stopping. Although it only took half a year from getting addicted to gambling to passing away, Qingding's father still owed a huge gambling debt. A full 600 taels of gold. The price of 1 tael of gold in this era is roughly equivalent to 128,800 yen in modern Japan. 600 taels of gold is 77.28 million yen equivalent to RMB, it is nearly 4 million, note. The conversion between Japanese yen and RMB shall be based on the exchange rate used by the author when writing this chapter. 600 taels of gold is such an astonishing astronomical figure, which is evident. In the Edo period, only Yakuza would have opened and operated casinos. Ordinary merchants will never get involved in casino business. The casino where Qingding's father owed gambling debts relies on the Yakuza group, which is commonly known as the Shimizu clan. During the Edo period, Yakuza adopted a family-centered organizational structure, so people generally referred to them as the XX clan or XX party. The Qingshui clan is not an ordinary Yakuza. They have great influence and have entered and intervened in various industries in Edo. It is widely recognized as the Yakuza group with the largest Edo influence. The scarred face just now is from the Shimizu clan. Zhu Longji's popularity is actually quite good, even if he suddenly becomes a gambling addict all day long, there are still a few people who are loyal to Zhu Longji. After the death of Zhu Long, his close friends immediately joined forces and decided to work together to secure a position for Qingding, so that the Zhu family would not perish due to the lack of financial resources. After some operation, they successfully allowed Edo to inherit Takashi's official position 6 months ago, becoming the new Tongsheng of the town designated by Edo Kitafumi. Qingding inherited the official position of Zhu Longji. This is certainly a good thing. Qingding also inherited the huge debt owed by Zhu Longji to the Qingshui clan. Qingding's father died, and his gambling debt naturally fell on Qingding's shoulders. In the past 6 months since Qingding's father's death, people from the Qingshui clan have come to collect debts from various places. It is only natural for a father to owe money and a son to grow up. Moreover, the debtor is Yakuza, who has always ignored law and order. I swallowed my pride and silently repaid my debt for half a year, successfully returning only 520 taels of gold from 600 taels of gold pop. Qingding slowly lifted his head and suddenly raised his hands, pressing down on his cheeks. Not only have they been targeted by terrorists, but they have also been targeted by the largest Yakuza group in the city. What kind of hell is this? The new book set sail. Seeking all kinds of support. Seeking collection. Requesting recommended tickets. The new book is updated regularly every morning at 10 o'clock. This feeling of being updated on time is really a long time gone. The Japanese history classroom is now open between the Kamakura and Muromachi eras. There was actually a very brief period. The Southern and Northern Dynasties period. 1336.1392. After the fall of the Kamakura shogunate, the Kyoto court once regained national power, and the emperor once again became the de facto national leader. But the various reforms implemented by the then emperor, Emperor Go-Go, to strengthen the power of the court, failed to meet the needs of the samurai class. At that time, the great general of the imperial court, who had once established a great power during the downfall of the Kamakura shogunate, Ashikaga Takashi, was very dissatisfied with Emperor Go-Daigo and successfully forced him to abdicate and establish a new emperor. Emperor Akihito. With the establishment of such a puppet Empress Dowager, Ashikaga Takauji was granted the position of Grand General of the conquering barbarians under the title of Emperor Guanming, and the second shogunate in Japanese history was established in the Muromachi area. The Muromachi shogunate. However, shortly after Emperor Daigo abdicated, he managed to escape and fled to Yoshino in present-day Nara Prefecture, where he confronted Emperor Akira, who was supported by the Ashikaga clan. Therefore, historians referred to the political power supported by Ashikaga Zun as the Northern Dynasty, and the political power of Emperor Go-Daigo as the Southern Dynasty. It was not until the Muromachi shogunate that the third shogun was passed down that the Northern Dynasty finally destroyed the Southern Dynasty and ended it. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Anyway, go to the Sword Museum to learn swordsmanship first. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Anyway, go to the Sword Museum to learn swordsmanship first. Young master, what's wrong with you? Qingding's sudden act of slapping his face startled Zhu Bingwei. No. After rubbing his cheeks vigorously, Qingding turned around and walked back to the hall. Zhu Bingwei, do you have water? I want to have a glass of water. Ah. Is there water? I want to have a glass of water. Oh. The 9 soldiers' guard, who was slightly deaf, nodded after finally hearing Qingding's words. Some, I'll bring it to you right away. Qingding walked back to the living room and casually sat cross-legged in a corner of the hall. At this time, Japan still did not have the habit of sitting in chairs or sleeping in beds. Just sit on the floor. Sleep, lay the bedding on the ground, and then sleep on the ground like this. Just as Qingding's buttocks touched the floor, Zhu Bingwei swiftly brought the water over. After taking the water cup handed by the 9 soldiers' guard and drinking it upside down in one breath, Qingding let out a long sigh. Then he suddenly began to take off his clothes. Xiao Zhu. The stunned 9 soldiers' guard stuttered, what are you doing? Qingding ignored the 9 soldiers' guard. After stripping off his upper clothes, Qingding propped his hands on the ground in a face-down position, performing a classic fitness move from his past life. Young master, what are you really doing? I'm doing push-ups. This is a method that a friend of mine recommended to me today that can effectively exercise my body. Alright, stop talking, I need to focus now. The fitness exercise that Qingding is currently doing is push-ups. This is a habit of Qingding's past life. In his past life, Qingding, who was obsessed with fitness, had a peculiar habit of doing push-ups when thinking about problems or trying to calm his mind. When your thoughts are confused, as long as you do push-ups, your mind will gradually become more alert and your thoughts will gradually become clearer. When there are various negative emotions such as tension and panic, as long as you do push-ups, your emotions can gradually calm down. So in his past life, when Qingding boasted and farted with his friends, his favorite thing to say was, if the college entrance examination allowed him to do push-ups while answering questions, it would be a bit difficult to score 750 points, but there would still be no problem getting above 700 points. Although Zhu Bingwei couldn't understand why his young master inexplicably did these push-ups, because Qingding had just ordered him not to speak, Zhu Bingwei could only suppress his doubts and silently hold Qingding's empty cup of water back to the kitchen. After doing 5 push-ups in one breath, Qingding gradually felt his emotions calm down and his thinking became agile. Find a way. We need to find some way quickly. Otherwise, I might die on the roadside tomorrow. At the same time, being targeted by the radical anti-barbarians and Yakuza. Such a hellish start made Qingding imagine the scene, feeling his heart skip a beat for countless shots. In the memory of Yuanzhu Qingding, there are many materials related to the Qingshui tribe. Due to the imperfect legal system and the imperfect judicial and public security forces, Yakuza in this era is much more dangerous and lawless than modern gangs in previous lives. The powerful Yakuza group like the Shimizu clan has a highly professional and sophisticated strategy to deal with those who cannot repay their debts. Firstly, exhaust all means to squeeze every penny out of the debtor's household. The first thing to be targeted is naturally everything in the creditor's house that can be used to sell money. In the process of forcing creditors to give up all their money, they will send many paparazzi to harass creditors and make them restless, in order to ensure the successful extraction of every penny from their homes. For example, gathering a large group of people every day to block the door of creditors, shouting, "Repay money," and "Repay money quickly." Even if you cry and shout that you really don't have any money, they won't scratch. After confirming that you really don't have any money, but you still can't pay off the debt, Yakuza's methods will start to become cruel. If there are women in the family, they should be arrested and sold directly. Men at home will be forced to do various strange jobs. This audacious behavior is simply unreasonable in modern times, but it is extremely common in the Edo period in which Qingdang is currently living. The imperfect legal system allowed Yakuza people to confidently rely on selling the dignity of creditors to offset their debts, while the government was powerless to deal with this chaos. The people of the Qingshui tribe used various disgusting methods to force him to pay off his debts. Such a scene made Qingdang feel nauseous just by thinking about it. But for the Qingshui tribe, Qingdang is actually not too afraid. After all, these Yakuzas are only seeking wealth and don't want Qingdang's life. They may hope that Qingdang lives well, because only when Qingdang lives well can they continue to collect money. So as long as Qingdang can repay the money well, the people of the Qingshui clan should not do anything to Qingdang. As for the matter of money, that's easy to say. Qingdang has some valuable items stored in his house. In a very urgent situation, he can pawn those items to repay the money. Even worse, you can still borrow money from friends. Yuan Jukingdang has a wide social circle, and owing money to friends is better than owing money to Yakuza. Compared to Yakuza, the radical anti-foreign faction was the real concern for Qingdang at this time. The Qingshui clan only wants Qingdang's money, while the radical anti-Japanese faction wants Qingdang's life. This is the most urgent crisis that directly affects Qingdang's life. The scene of being attacked by 3 assassins just now flashed uncontrollably through Qingdang's mind. Drips of cold sweat seeped out from Qingdang's forehead and back. Qingdang, who lived in a peaceful era in his past life, was just a young man who had just graduated from a police academy and had not even entered the police force. He had never faced a life or death crisis. Tonight is his first time being chased, and the first time he feels the feeling of impending death. This taste is not pleasant. Every time I recall the scene of being chased just now, cold sweat uncontrollably seeps out from my forehead. He doesn't want to die just because of the ridiculous reason of having worked in the U.S. Embassy for a few days. He had good luck tonight, as the melon-eating crowd arrived in time and forced the assassins to retreat. What about next time? Will there be such good luck next time? The radical anti-barbarians are all a bunch of lunatics who cannot reason with them. Their next attack may be in 7 days, or it may be tomorrow. Qingdang, who was anxious in his heart, instinctively increased his speed in doing push-ups. At least one must have the ability to protect themselves from being killed by the radical anti-foreigner faction. Qingdang's thoughts scattered along the idea of acquiring self-protection ability. How to quickly obtain the self-protection ability that will not be killed casually by others. A word came to Qingdang's mind. Cheating. If you want to gain powerful power at the fastest speed to protect yourself, there is no more reliable method than relying on cheats. If you can successfully replicate a very impressive talent at the fastest speed, your self-protection ability will increase sharply. Qingdang's thoughts further diverged and he continued to contemplate deeper. His replication talent system is only activated when competing with others. What kind of place can he openly compete with many people? The name of a building that was ubiquitous in Japan during the Edo period, as if it had its own life, automatically popped up in Aoden's mind. Sword Hall. Since the Genji samurai group successfully defeated the emperor in 1192 and established the first samurai regime, the Kamakura shogunate, the samurai class has been ruling in Japan for over 600 years. For over 600 years, Japan's social class, like China's social class, has been divided into 4 classes: scholar, farmer, and businessmen. Chinese taxis are literati. Japanese samurai, on the other hand, are samurai. Although the taxis of the two are not quite the same, their status is the same. They are both ruling and privileged classes above agriculture, commerce, and industry. In China, everything is inferior, only reading is high. In Japan, everything is inferior, only samurai are superior. In 1603, Tokugawa Ieyasu established the third samurai regime in Japanese history, the Edo Shogunate. In order to demonstrate the nobility of samurai status, the Edo Shogunate specially legislated many privileges that only the ruling samurai class would have. One of the important privileges that samurai possess is the right to wield swords. Wu is one of the most important attributes of the samurai class. So in order to highlight the nobility and martial attributes of the samurai, the Edo Shogunate stipulated that only samurai could wear a sword, and they must wear it when they go out. Samurai usually wear 2 swords, one long and one short, around their waist. The long one is called dao and is the main weapon when fighting with people. The shorter one is called chi-cha, pronounced in the same tone as xia-cha, and it is a secondary weapon used in sword battles with humans. The sword-wielding power of warriors has made the sword a symbol of warriors, while also promoting the flourishing development of swordsmanship. The Edo period was a period of vigorous development in Japanese swordsmanship. The famous schools of thought, such as the Kitagawa no Kami flow, the Shinto no Kami flow, and the Mirror Heart Wise flow, were all born during the Edo period. The flourishing development of swordsmanship has naturally led to sword halls everywhere. There are dozens of sword houses in the city of Edo alone. If you want to fight openly with others, there is no more suitable way than joining a crowded sword club. Learning swordsmanship at a sword gym will bring 2 benefits. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. 1. Can maximize the effectiveness of his cheats. 2. Being able to learn swordsmanship at the same time enhances his self-protection ability. One of the main reasons why Qingdang almost fell into the predicament of being chopped to death tonight is that his current swordsmanship level is really too poor. Yuan Zhuqingdang is a person who has little interest in swordsmanship. In his 18 years, he never went to any sword gym to learn swordsmanship, only learned orange flow from his father. The so-called orange flow is a sword technique developed by Qingdang's father before his death, which is purely for practical use. Although there are few sword techniques, they are indeed extremely practical sword techniques in combat. However, orange flow is not a legitimate school after all. It is more than enough to deal with ordinary people who do not understand any martial arts, and to deal with practitioners with real skills, one must catch them blind. So currently, Qingdang, who only understands the wild chicken genre of orange flow. His strength is basically, no one can beat anyone except ordinary people, although Qingdang, who inherited the memories of his past life, now possesses powerful unarmed combat skills. No matter how powerful the unarmed combat skills are, it is extremely difficult to gain benefits from enemies holding sharp blades. The best way to deal with armed enemies is to also hold weapons. If one could possess strong swordsmanship, they would not fall into the embarrassing situation of being almost chopped to death tonight. After thinking about going to the sword gym to learn swordsmanship, Qingdang immediately thought of the second method that might have the effect of cheating. Going to the gym to challenge. Kick one sword gym after another and compete with people from one sword gym after another. However, as soon as the idea of kicking the gym came to Qingdang's mind, it was dispelled by him. He only went to challenge the gym after his brain twitched. Kicking the gym, no matter in which era, is always a difficult and thankless task. There may not be 1 out of 10 sword houses that allow others to come and ask for advice. Because accepting challengers is far more harmful than beneficial for the sword house. Winning the challenger, the reputation bonus of the sword house is extremely limited. If you lose, you will lose face and have a very negative impact on recruiting new apprentices in the future. This kind of job smashing is something that even a clear-minded swordsman wouldn't do. Even if you really found several sword halls willing to accept challenges from others, Qingdang may not be able to get along with many people. Because in this era, there are many rules for kicking the gym. One of the rules is that when you lose, you will be considered a failed challenge and immediately kicked out of the sword gym. Based on Qingdang's current level of swordsmanship, going to challenge someone else's gym. Probably the only thing that would happen is that he couldn't even defeat the first apprentice sent by them, and then he was kicked out of the gym, successfully fighting only one person from beginning to end. Therefore, if you go to challenge the gym, it is not only inefficient, but also easy to offend people, making it difficult and not pleasing. After organizing his thoughts, Qingdang had a clear goal in his mind. To learn swordsmanship at the sword gym. Qingdang, who had set his target, jumped up from the ground and shouted to the 9 soldiers guard who was still in the kitchen in a panting voice after doing more than 50 push-ups in a row. Jubing Wei. Come over here for a moment. Hey, here we are. Jubing Wei walked quickly out of the kitchen and approached Qingdang. After deducting necessary expenses such as clothing, food, housing, and transportation, how much savings do we have left? I want to learn swordsmanship at a sword gym. What sword gym can we use our remaining savings to study at? Qingdang said concisely to Jubing Wei. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Tongsheng Yizhen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Tongsheng Yizhen. Learn swordsmanship. Jubing Wei blinked a few times with a puzzled expression on his face. Young master, why do you suddenly want to learn swordsmanship? Haven't you always had little interest in swordsmanship? The people of the anti-barbarian faction are really unreasonable and despicable, so I have decided to start practicing swordsmanship seriously from today. When they come back to attack me again next time, I will beat them to pieces. Qingdang said half-truthfully. Listening to Qingdang's words, Jubing Wei was stunned for a moment, and then his face showed excitement. Young master, that's right. You need to have such ambition. This is what makes a warrior. That's right. That's right. Wait a moment, I'll go get the ledger and money. The 9 soldiers guard turned around and hurried towards the back room. In no time, he returned to Qingdang. When he returned to Qingdang, he had an extra account book, an abacus, and a bag of money in his pocket. Qingdang looked at the bag of money in the hands of Jubing Wei with a hint of sadness in his eyes. This bag didn't have much money, it was all the savings of Qingdang and his family so far. Yuan Zhuqingdang doesn't know how to do accounting, and his family's money and account books are usually handled by the 9th Army Guard. The 9 soldiers guard moved over the low table placed in a corner of the hall, spread the ledger on top of the low table, and then placed the abacus next to the ledger, quickly calculating the accounts. In no time, the 9 soldiers guard stopped using their abacus and untied the money bag containing all the savings of their orange family. They took out some silver coins and a large string of copper coins from inside. Xiaozhu. Jubing Wei chuckled awkwardly, after deducting necessary expenses such as clothing, food, housing, and transportation. The only funds we have available now are 11 Wenmu silver and 6,000 Wen copper coins. In the Edo period of Japan, there were 3 types of currency circulating on the market. Gold, silver, and copper. 1 tael of gold is almost equal to 64 when silver is almost equal to 6,400 when copper coins. After learning that there was only a small amount of freely available funds at home, Qingdang's chin almost fell to the ground. Is there only this little money? Young master. Jubing Wei let out a long sigh. Most of our family's surplus wealth has been used to pay off debts. Listening to the words of the 9 soldiers guard, Qingdang's mouth couldn't help but twitch. It's really hard to defeat a hero with just 1 penny. After silently sighing in his heart, Qingdang let out a long sigh. Sigh. Anyway, if you have less money, why don't you? Jubing Wei, which is the best sword gym with our current surplus that I can go to. The main reason for this body is that it is not interested in swordsmanship, so there is not much information in memory about the sword houses in Edo. Therefore, Qingdang can only seek help from the 9 soldiers' guard. Oh. Jubing Wei's face showed a look of embarrassment. Young master, you're asking me a question. I don't know anything about a sword academy. A sword academy that I can name can be counted with just 1 hand. I think so too. Qingdang sighed lightly. There's nothing I can do. I'll ask some of my friends to keep an eye on it later. Ah. Jubing Wei coldly patted his forehead. Young master, I remember now. Would you like to go to Qianshi House to ask? Qianshu. Qingdang raised his eyebrows. What is this? It's a job agency, said Jubing Wei. Young master, isn't our family running out of money recently? So I thought of finding some job that I am also capable of to subsidize my family. So, through someone's introduction, I found out about this job agency. Qingdang. Employment agencies. As the ruling, political, and economic center of the Edo Shogunate, Edo was the largest city of the Edo period. As the largest city of this era, Edo naturally attracts young people from all over the country with dreams of becoming rich. A large number of young people come to Edo to work. In this era, there is no such convenient things as newspapers and the internet. It is very difficult to exchange information. It will be very difficult to find a job in this city with a population of 1 million people. So, a job agency specifically responsible for helping people introduce their work emerged. The vast majority of job agencies during the Edo period were privately run. In Edo, there are over 20 job agencies, big or small. Jubing Wei, what I'm looking for is a sword house, not a job. Young master, listen to me finish speaking. Jubing Wei shook his head and shook his head. That Qianshi house can not only introduce work, but also introduce the sword hall. This is one of their important signs. Oh. Qingdang's eyes immediately flickered with interest, and he instinctively leaned towards the 9 soldiers' guard. Specifically, I'm not quite sure. I only know that Qianshu can not only help job seekers introduce jobs, but also help those who want to learn swordsmanship in Edo introduce a sword gym that suits them. Hey! Qianshu. Qingdang patted his chin, can you help me introduce the sword house? It sounds good. Okay, it's decided. Qingdang clenched his right hand into a fist and gently struck his left palm. Tomorrow happens to be a day off. I'll go to that Qianshi house tomorrow morning to ask. Don't procrastinate when doing things, just do what comes to mind. This is one of Qingdang's most proud advantages. As a reward for successfully suppressing the benevolent and righteous people, we strive to ensure that all those who participate in this operation have a day off tomorrow, which can effectively utilize this holiday. Jubing Wei, do you know where that Qianshi house is? Jubing Wei nodded and said, it's quite close to us. The next day, January 13th, in the morning, after hastily eating the breakfast cooked by the 9 soldiers' guard, Qingdang put on his clothes and wore a sword and a sword symbolizing his samurai identity on his left waist. He rushed out of the house in a hurry. Qingdang's doorstep is facing a dirt road that is neither narrow nor wide. At around 7 o'clock in the morning, turning onto the dirt road facing his doorstep, Qingdang saw 2 or 3 samurai, either idle like him or eager to go to work. In the Edo period of Japan, in order to show identity differences and avoid disputes, samurai and commoners generally did not live together. Samurai are concentrated in samurai settlements, while civilians are concentrated in civilian settlements. The 8-ding hori where Qingdang resides is one of the samurai settlements. So warriors wearing swords can be seen everywhere in the 8-ding hori. In terms of quantity, the number of samurai in Edo was far less than that of civilians, but the samurai occupied most of Edo, and the land occupied by the samurai was still the best in Edo, leaving the vast majority of civilians crowded in the worst geographical areas. The unfair distribution of resources makes people only want to lament with a sorrowful heart the evil ruling class. Having no time to appreciate the street scenery of ancient Japan, Qingdang hurriedly followed the address mentioned by Jiubing Wei last night and rushed to the Qianshi house as soon as he left his house. What Jiubing Wei said is true. That Qianshi house is indeed not far from Qingdang's house. Qingdang ran slowly all the way, and in just over 10 minutes, he saw a simple-looking wooden house at the end of his field of vision. At the top of the door of this wooden house hangs a plaque with the 3 big Chinese characters, Qianshi House, written on it. Like ancient China, houses in ancient Japan were mostly made of wood. Since Japan launched the Dahua reform in 645 AD, comprehensively studying the advanced culture and system of the Sui and Tang dynasties, Japan has directly imported Chinese characters for use. Prior to this, Japan had never had its own writing system. After the Dahua reform, the usage rate of Chinese characters in ancient Japan has always been high, and a formal official document from the government may be written in Chinese characters throughout its content. Is this the Qianshi house? Qingdang stood in front of the shop door, surveying the seemingly simple-looking job agency. Is it open now? Qingdang muttered as he quickly walked towards the shop door. When hitting the handle of the shop door and preparing to open it, "Oh my, Mr. Tongsheng Yizhen, how could you even repair Wu Fu?" Well, because I had previously studied the production and repair of Wu clothing in the Muromachi area. Mr. Tongsheng Yizhen. You really know everything. You're so amazing. You praised me falsely, these are just some minor strengths that are not worth mentioning. 2 simple dialogues were passed from behind the door to Qingdang's ears. Wow, Qingdang pushed open the wooden shop door. The first thing that caught Qingdang's eye was an old lady with thick lips. The old lady is currently kneeling in front of a low counter. Behind the counter sat an elderly person who appeared to be 80 or 90 years old, with glasses on his nose and a warm smile on his face, looking quite gentle and refined. Changed status. Now that this book is in the signing status, you can give rewards and apply for monthly tickets. So I'm looking for various tickets. Looking for a monthly pass. Requesting recommended tickets. QAQ, end of this chapter. Chapter 8. Dance Under the Wood. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Dance Under the Wood. After Qingdang opened the shop door, the old man in the shop and the thick-lipped wife immediately turned their heads and looked at Qingdang. Oh, it seems that a guest has come to your door. Mr. Tongsheng Yizhen, I won't continue to disturb you. I'll say goodbye first. Mrs. Izumi, please walk slowly. The old man with glasses smiled and lowered his body, bowing elegantly to the old lady. If your clothes break again next time, feel free to come back to me anytime. Ah. Mr. Tongsheng Yizhen, if only my old man had half of your talent in gentleness. The thick-lipped wife, like a young girl in Huichuan, supported her face with her hand, twisted her body a few times, and then quickly walked out of the store holding a large cloth bag filled with women's kimono. When she left the store, the old lady didn't forget to turn her head frequently, casting affectionate glances at the old man with glasses, who kept smiling and watching her off. It wasn't until the old lady completely disappeared from the old man's field of vision that he turned his gaze to Qingdang. May I ask what is under my feet? May I ask if your shop is currently open? I have something to consult with, Qingdang said. Of course it's open. The old man nodded, please sit down. He knelt behind the counter and made a, please, gesture towards the counter. Please allow me to introduce myself first. My surname is Tongsheng and my name is Yizhen. I am the owner of this Qianshi house. May I ask what you would like to inquire about? While the elderly man who claimed to be Tongsheng Yizhen was introducing himself, Qingdang quickly walked to the counter and sat down in front of it. After getting closer to the old man, Qingdang instinctively scrutinized his face. He is very old, at least 8 or 90 years old, but his eyes are still bright and energetic, and his spirit look quite good. I believe his body must also be very strong. Although his face was covered with traces of time, it could still be vaguely seen that the old man must have looked good when he was young. Japan has been a country for 7 years and has been dealing with foreign countries for so long. A person wearing a pair of glasses, like the one in front of me, is no longer a rare species in Japan. The old man introduced himself, and Qingdang, out of courtesy, also introduced himself. My surname is Orange and my name is Qingdang. After briefly introducing himself, Qingdang went straight to the topic. I heard that your shop can help people introduce the sword museum. Is it true? Tongsheng nodded with a smile and said, yes. This is one of the important signs of our store. Do you want to inquire about Jianguan? Yes. Qingdang nodded as if pounding garlic. So, what kind of sword gym would you like to go to? I want to go to a sword gym that meets these 3 criteria. Qingdang raised 3 fingers. I can afford it with this little amount of funds. Secondly, the swordsmanship taught is highly practical and not flashy. Thirdly, it is best to have enough apprentices in the museum, the more the better. As long as these 3 conditions are met, any kind of sword gym is possible. After speaking, Qingdang took out his wallet from his arms, which contained the remaining wealth of their Orange family. After taking out the money bag, Qingdang placed it on the counter and opened it, allowing Tongsheng to clearly see the amount stored in the bag. Tongsheng lowered his head to look at the money in his eye bag, and then asked Qingdang in reverse with a normal expression. My guest, in order to help you find the most suitable sword gym for you, please allow me to ask you a question. I can understand the first 2 conditions you just mentioned, but I'm a bit confused about the 3rd condition. Why do you have to find a sword gym with many people? I love to spar with others the most, so I think of a sword gym with a lot of people to spar with. Qingdang casually made up a lie. Oh, I see. Tongsheng nodded lightly. Please wait a moment. As Tongsheng spoke, he pulled out a large book from under the counter and then spread it out on the countertop. Is this? Qingdang asked in confusion. This is the most valuable thing in my job agency, Tongsheng smiled. It records detailed information about all the sword halls in Edo. The information includes everything from tuition fees to the number of apprentices in the halls. Oh. That thing is indeed very valuable. I also put in a lot of effort to make this book, said Tongsheng with a nostalgic expression, as he began flipping through the Edo Sword Museum collection. The swordsmanship taught is extremely practical. At the same time, there should be enough people to learn from. Then this sword gym is very suitable for you. Tongsheng's words fell, and his fingers flipping through the book just stopped. A natural testing facility for the flow of emotions. Natural flow of mind. Qingdang raised his eyebrows. He skillfully searched through the memories of Yuanju Qingdang in his mind. It was found that there were no fragments of natural flow in the memory of Yuanju Qingdang. Tongsheng smiled faintly at Qingdang as if he had seen through his thoughts. This is a relatively obscure genre, so you may not have heard of its name. But I can assure you that in terms of practicality, this school is not inferior to famous schools such as Beichen Idao Flow and Shinto Wunyan Flow. Tongsheng opened his mouth and was about to say something more. Mr. Tongsheng, I'm so hungry. Do you have breakfast? Suddenly, a crisp, silver bell-like young female voice came from inside the shop. Qingdang instinctively followed the sound. A small figure slowly walked out from behind a corner deep in the shop. It is a girl who is holding a cute little orange cat in her arms. Their age is around 15 or 6 years old. The cat she is holding in her arms is an orange cat that should be under 1 year old. In Qingding's eyes, the height of this young girl belongs to the category of short stature, with a height of only about 1.5 meters. Her facial features are delicate, especially her eyes, with bright and lively dark eyeballs and a scholarly aura between her eyebrows. Judging from its appearance, it seems like it has just woken up. A head of jet black long hair was casually draped behind him, and the clothes on his body were slightly messy, with cute white feet bare. Although he may only appear to be around 15 or 6 years old, his development is surprisingly good. Even though he is wearing thick, cold-resistant clothing, he can still clearly see that the fabric on his chest is bulging. The girl who walked out of the corner of the shop immediately froze in place like she had been enchanted by petrification when she saw Qingding. After facing Qingding's 4 eyes for an instant, she immediately hugged the cat in her arms and hid behind the corner of the corridor she had just walked out of at a speed that seemed to teleport. "Sorry," Tongsheng said with an apologetic bitter smile to Qingding. "This child is a bit afraid of strangers, please forgive me." As soon as Tongsheng finished speaking, Qingding caught a glimpse of the young girl reappearing from behind at the corner of the corridor. Only half of her face was exposed. The remaining body parts are still hidden behind the corner of the corridor. The half of her face was now adorned with a blush mixed with shyness. "Girl." At #UN%*. Qingding saw the girl's lips moving. He could vaguely sense that the girl seemed to be talking to him, but Qingding couldn't hear what she was saying at all. Listening to the girl's snorting like a mosquito, Qingding felt that she was not speaking Japanese, but rather reciting a spell. While Qingding was staring at the girl who was speaking to him for the sake of politeness, Tongsheng was also looking at the girl. After the girl finally finished reciting her spell, Tongsheng smiled and turned his head to say to Qingding. She said, "Welcome to Qianchuo, she is the handmaiden here." Kishida dance. Note: handwritten name. In the Edo period, the term used to refer to a clerk in a shop. After translating with Qingding what the girl had just said, Tongsheng once again turned his gaze to the girl. "Girl. UN% at #*#. Tongsheng said, she said, "This is her good friend. Duo." As soon as Tongsheng finished speaking, the girl lifted the orange cat she had been holding in her arms with both hands and held it outside the corner of the corridor. Meow. The orange cat, who was held out of the hallway, meowed towards Qingding very well, looking at the air. After the orange cat greeted Qingding, the girl picked up the orange cat and brought it back to the back of the corner. Why do we introduce ourselves to cats? When Qingding was roast about the girl's strange act just now, the girl's curse had not stopped. "Girl. #UN at #UN% *# at #UN%*. Tongsheng said, she said, "I was really impolite just now. I didn't know if a guest came to show you my very impolite appearance. I'm really sorry. Girl. At #UN%*. Tongsheng said, she said, "Please wait a moment, I'll go and brew tea for you." "How on earth did you communicate?" Qingding's face was dark. "I used to learn lip language in the vicinity of the Yangtze River before." After smiling at Qingding, Tongsheng turned his head and shouted to the girl, "Young master, I haven't cooked breakfast yet. Please be patient for a moment. After receiving this guest, I will go cook. Today's breakfast is your favorite boiled egg." Qingding saw the half of the girl's face exposed outside the corridor, and after Tongsheng's words fell, a strong look of joy appeared. Then the girl shrank her head behind the corridor, and the figure of the girl was no longer seen. "Young master." Qingding repeated with a puzzled expression what Tongsheng had just called the lovely girl. "That girl is not only the handmaid who works for me in this shop, but also the adopted granddaughter of the person I serve." Tongsheng explained to Qingding calmly, "So I have both an employment relationship and a master-servant relationship with that child." A pair of glasses named Kiryu Kazuma opened a shop called Qianchuo in Edo and lived with a girl. So many elements are about to overflow. The new book sets sail. Seeking collection. Requesting recommended tickets. Looking for a monthly pass. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Natural Heart Flow Test Hall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Natural Heart Flow Test Hall. It's both an employment relationship and a master-servant relationship. What kind of messy relationship is this? Although I feel strange about the relationship between Tongsheng and the girl named Muxiawu in my heart, it is still their personal matter, so Qingdang is not convenient to ask more questions. Sorry, the topic was interrupted earlier. Alright, let's go back to the previous topic. Tongsheng cleared his throat. There are 3 reasons why I recommend the Natural Heart Flow Test Hall to you. 1. Natural Mind Flow is not a fancy and useless school of thought. It meets the criteria of, I hope the swordsmanship I have learned has strong practicality. Tongsheng raised his first finger. This school of thought was founded 70 years ago during the Kansei period by a swordsman named Satsuki Kondo. At the beginning, Kondo Naosuke was a swordsman of the Katakatsu Shindo flow. After his swordsmanship was perfected, he applied his own understanding to the Katakatsu Shindo flow and ultimately created a brand new genre, the Natural Mind Flow. Kagami Shindo. A famous swordsmanship school in the Japanese swordsmanship world. The history is quite long, with a history of 400 years since its establishment. In Japan, no one who learns swordsmanship knows how to use incense to obtain divine teachings. The philosophy pursued by the natural rational flow is one hit, one kill. Tongsheng's introduction continues. The pursuit of defeating opponents in the shortest possible time is a quite fierce style of swordsmanship. And the Shiwei Pavilion is the ancestral home of the natural flow of thought, and the current owner of the Shiwei Pavilion is the 3rd generation leader of the natural flow of thought, Yuzuki Kondo. Oh. Qingdang listened attentively and nodded lightly from time to time. 2. Although natural mind flow is a highly practical genre, due to various reasons such as poor luck, it still lacks fame to this day. Therefore, the scale of the Imperial Guard Hall is still very small and cannot be considered a large sword hall, so the tuition fee is not expensive. The monthly tuition fee is only 3 yen, and your current financial resources are fully sufficient to support your study at the Imperial Guard Hall. As for the 3rd reason, it is the main reason why I recommend you to go to the testing facility. Tongsheng raised his 3rd finger. Your desire to compete with as many experts as possible at the testing facility will be met to the greatest extent possible. Qingdang frowned slightly at this moment. Mr. Tongsheng, didn't you just say that the Trial Guard Hall was a small sword hall? So, shouldn't the number of apprentices in the Trial Guard Hall be very small? Tongsheng nodded lightly. That's right, the number of apprentices at the Imperial Guard is indeed very small. But once you enter the Trial Guard Hall, you will be able to fully compete with the people from Xuanwu Hall and Zayakayanai Sword Hall. Xuanwu Hall and Zayakayanai Sword Hall. Qingdang's eyes immediately widened in surprise. Even Yuan Jukingdang, who has no interest in swordsmanship, has relevant information about Xuanwu Temple and Zayakayanai swordsmanship in his mind. Today in Edo, there are 3 famous sword halls, which are a training hall that teaches the flow of non-mindfulness in Shinto. A scholar academy that teaches the wise flow of the mirror heart. The Xuanwu Hall that teaches Beichenidao flow. These 3 sword halls, collectively known as the 3 Great Sword Halls of Edo, are renowned throughout Japan. The schools taught by these 3 sword houses are undoubtedly the most popular and famous schools in Japan at present. These swordsmanship schools are actually like those martial arts schools in Chinese martial arts novels. The martial arts of different sects have different characteristics. The positions of the Training Hall, Scholars Academy, and Xuanwu Hall in the current Japanese swordsmanship world are similar to those of the Shaolin, Wudong, anime sects in the martial arts world. Beichenidao Lu is a relatively young genre, founded by a swordsman named Chiba Josua over 30 years ago. After establishing the Hokkaido Ichiro School, Chiba Chozu opened a new school of swordsmanship called the Schwanwu Hall in Edo, which taught him this new genre. Chiba and his family all have excellent swordsmanship genes. Chiba Josua's younger brother, Chiba Dingji, was also a swordsman with extremely high talent. Under his brother's guidance, he quickly mastered the Beichen Idao flow. After his brother Chiba Chozu established the Schwanwu Hall in Edo, Chiba Dingji also opened a sword hall in Edo to teach the Hokkaido Ichiro technique. To distinguish it from the Schwanwu Hall of Chiba Zhou, the sword hall opened by Chiba Dingji is commonly known as the Little Chiba Sword Hall. Due to various reasons such as luck, many talented individuals have emerged under the command of Beichen Yideliu. Since its establishment, in just over 30 years, Beichen Yideliu's sword halls have opened throughout Japan, and there is now a faint trend of being the first swordsmanship school in Japan. And all the sword halls in Japan that teach the Hokkaido Ichikaku flow undoubtedly respect the Schwanwu Hall and the Kachiba Sword Hall. After all, one is the sword house built by the founder of the school, and the other is the sword house built by the brother of the founder of the school. The two are unquestionable sects of the Beichen Ichikaku, and have a transcendent position in the Japanese swordsmanship world. As a result, studying in these two sword halls is extremely difficult, with tuition fees aside. There are also certain requirements for the strength of entry-level disciples, and not all cats and dogs can easily enter Schwanwu Hall and Zayakayanai Sword Hall to learn swordsmanship. In the Trial Guard Hall, one can compete with disciples from Schwanwu Hall and Zayakayanai Sword Hall. Tongsheng's words just now were like saying to him, in a certain three-tier university, one can engage in academic exchanges with students from Qingbei. Tongsheng had already anticipated Qingding's reaction, and after a slight smile, he said, "This matter has to start from the Kansei period 70 years ago. 70 years ago, the father of the founder of the natural flow of thought, Satoshi Kondo, and the founder of the Kichi Ichikawa flow, Chiba Chasuk, Chiba Yizhen, were good friends. They used to work together in Edo. The friendship between their two families has been passed down to this day. When Chiba Chazuo, the son of Chiba Yizhen, founded the Kitagawa Ichiro and Schwanwu mansions more than 30 years ago, the three generations head of the Natsumoto Shinrikyu sect, Kondo Chasuk, also established the Shirwei mansion in Edo almost at the same time. The 70-year-old friendship between the two families has made the relationship between Shirwei, Schwanwu Hall, and Zayakayanai Sword Hall extremely good. People from the three sword halls often gather together for swordsmanship exchanges. That is to say, if you enter the Trial Guard Hall, you will have the opportunity to compete with people from the Trial Guard Hall, Schwanwu Hall, and Zayakayanai Sword Hall at the same time. Is it really fake?" Qingdang couldn't help but let out a low exclamation of surprise. Tongsheng nodded with a smile and said, "Every word I say is absolutely true. You actually know that even the father of the founders of the Natural Mind Flow and the Beichen Ichikawa Flow once worked together in Edo. After all, I rely on this to make a living. If I don't know more information that ordinary people don't know, I can't continue to operate this job agency that relies on introducing people to work in swordsmanship." Qingdang pursed his lips at this moment, thinking rapidly in his mind. According to the memory of Yuan Jukingdang, both Schwanwu Hall and Zayakayanai Sword Hall were large sword halls with apprentices of several hundred or more, ranking second to none in terms of apprenticeship in Edo. If what Tongsheng just said is indeed true, then this testing and defense center is indeed the most suitable place for Qingdang, who is eager to compete with as many people as possible and use it to play a systematic role. Tongsheng, who had been carefully observing Qingdang's expression, reached into the drawer below and pulled out a piece of white paper. "It seems that you are very interested in the testing facility now." After speaking, Tongsheng picked up the brush placed at the corner of the counter, soaked the tip of the brush in ink, and wrote a line of words on a white paper depicting the dancing of dragons and phoenixes. "This is the address of the testing facility. If you are interested in that Imperial Guard Hall, you can go there now and visit this sword hall with your own eyes." Qingdang picked up the paper with both hands, which had the address of the Imperial Guards written on it. After scanning the words written on this piece of paper, Qingdang couldn't help but praise. "Wow, your handwriting is so beautiful. Thank you for your praise." Tongsheng smiled humbly. "I have studied calligraphy in the Ekizan area before. It's just a small skill worth mentioning. At this level, I can teach people how to write calligraphy with a brush. I'm flattered." After giving Qingdang a humble smile again, Tongsheng picked up his pen and said, "I'm a new customer of our store. To welcome your first visit to our store, I'll give you one more thing. I have a deep friendship with the Imperial Guard. If you have made up your mind to join the testing facility, you can hand it over to the person at the testing facility and say that you were introduced to you by Ikijin Kirishige. In this way, when the trial guard hall introduces you, it will provide you with some convenience to some extent." After finishing speaking, Tongsheng handed Qingdang a newly written note with the 4 big characters, Tongsheng Yizhen, written on it. Qingdang solemnly took the note handed over by Tongsheng, folded it together with a piece of paper with the address of the testing facility, and collected it in his arms. He then respectfully bowed to Tongsheng in front of him. "Thank you for your recommendation." "You're welcome." Tongsheng bowed in return. "May I ask how much the introduction fee is?" Qingdang, who was already interested in the testing facility, asked Tongsheng directly about the introduction fee. 31. Tongsheng reported a number without hesitation. "Here it is." Qingdang happily pointed out 30 copper coins from his wallet, then stood up and respectfully bowed to Tongsheng again. "Thank you very much, boss, for your recommendation. You have been very helpful to me." "You're welcome." Tongsheng smiled faintly. "If you have any further questions in the future, feel free to come to me again." Qingdang, who already knew what he wanted to know, was excitedly preparing to turn around and leave this profession. Jia suddenly, the sound of the wooden corridor being lightly stepped on came from inside the shop. Qingdang fixed his eyes to take a look. It turned out to be the little girl named Muxiawu. The girl who claimed to be Kishida no longer looked like she had just woken up from bed and was disheveled. At this moment, she was dressed neatly, wearing a predominantly bright red kimono and a pair of pure white cloth socks on her feet. She held a tray with both hands, which contained a cup of tea still steaming outwards. Burying her head low, she took small steps and came to Qingdang with tea. In addition to the sound of footsteps, Qingdang also heard the sound of click click click. This was the sound of Muxiawu's hand holding the tray trembling slightly, causing the teacup to constantly bump against the tray. That. Please have tea. Kayashida gently handed the tray in her hand towards Qingdang's direction. Her voice was as delicate as a thread, and Qingdang almost didn't hear what she was saying. Although the girl lowered her head and couldn't see her face clearly, Qingdang could vaguely touch the child's cheek, with a blush of shame and nervousness hanging from beginning to end. This child is really afraid of strangers. Even when serving tea to guests, he can be so nervous that he can't even hold the tray firmly. After silently expressing this emotion in his heart, Qingdang tried his best to show a gentle smile as he danced towards Muxiao. "Well, thank you for your tea." Qingdang picked up the teacup, drank it all in one gulp, and then solemnly put the teacup back on the tray. "Thank you for the hospitality. Boss, let's take a step first. If there is a chance later, we will definitely come back." Tongsheng bowed to Qingdang and bid him farewell. "Please walk slowly." After saying goodbye to the boss, Qingdang strode out of Qianchuo. After watching Qingdang leave, Tongsheng turned his head and smiled at Muxiao. "Young master, I have made progress and now I dare to serve tea to the guests." He. Kayashida smiled foolishly, and Kirishi's praise seemed to make her very happy. But there are still many things to pay attention to. Tongsheng's smile suddenly disappeared. When handing tea to someone, do not pass the cup and tray to their face, it is very impolite. Yes. I will pay attention to it in the future. The new book set sail. Looking for a monthly pass. Requesting recommended tickets. Seeking collection. Other people's new books, before they were put on the shelves, were all 4,000 books per day, while I was 6,000 or 7,000 books per day. I am very conscientious. So, for the sake of the author June's conscience, cast more monthly in recommended votes for this book. QAQ, end of this chapter. Chapter 10. Shannan Jingzhu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Shannan Jingzhu. The health clinic that Tongsheng just recommended made Qingding's heart race. But the last words from boss Tongsheng, "I have a deep friendship with the Imperial Guards," still made Qingding feel a bit worried. He was worried that the owner of Tongsheng might make the trial guard hall very attractive in order to take care of the business of his familiar sword house, in order to lure him to get started. This kind of behavior of supporting the business of friends is not uncommon. Therefore, to be on the safe side, he decided to first check whether the testing facility was really as good as Tongsheng said. How can we verify the authenticity of Tongsheng's introduction to the testing facility just now? Qingding really happens to have a good way of testing. He happens to. Or rather, Yuan Jukingdeng happens to have a close friend who is studying at the Little Chiba Sword Academy. Qingding was speeding along the street, and many civilians along the way quickly hid aside to make way. It was extremely common in Japan during the Edo period for civilians to give way to samurai. In the Edo period, apart from the special class of nobles and nobles, society could generally be divided into two types. The samurai of the ruling class and the commoners of the ruled class. As a ruling class and a warrior with a social status above the common people, it can be said that they have a considerable amount of shameless privileges. One of the great shameless privileges that samurai possess is disrespectful begging. The so-called impolite punishment means that when a samurai with the sword-wielding power feels that a commoner has insulted him, the samurai can directly draw his sword and kill the commoner without bearing any criminal responsibility. As a result, many commoners hold a sense of fear towards the warriors. When encountering them on the street, they usually automatically give way to avoid trouble. In the eyes of many commoners, a warrior running on the street is like a running bomb. Accidentally bumping into a samurai, tilting or dirtying their sword, the samurai roared, "You disrespectful person! You have tarnished my soul." Then he drew out his sword and killed the commoner who hit him. After killing the person, the samurai had nothing to do and might even be praised for being good, having a samurai demeanor. A samurai should be so carefree. This kind of thing was not uncommon in the Edo period. The ruling class of the feudal era could be so unreasonable. Qingding ran to a samurai settlement in one breath, then skillfully turned onto a small path and finally stopped in front of a seemingly ordinary small house. Shannan. Shannan. Shannan Jingzhu. Are you there? Here we go, here we go. As soon as Qingding's shout fell, a neutral baritone sounded from behind the door. In an instant, the slightly outdated door slowly opened. The door opener is a very young warrior. He has slightly fair skin, slightly slender eyes, and two tear moles at the corner of his right eye, which are particularly eye-catching against his fair skin. He is taller and shorter than Qingding, about 165 centimeters, with a slender figure. If one word is used to describe this young warrior, there is no more suitable word than delicate. Not very handsome, but also a face that can attract many girls to like. In addition to his good appearance, this young warrior also has a quite outstanding appearance. His temperament is particularly good, and he has a quiet temperament on his body. There was a faint smile on his face, a scholarly aura between his eyebrows and eyes, and a gentle and elegant aura emanating from every gesture. This person must be a highly educated talent. Many people will have such thoughts when they first meet this young warrior. Qingding, what's wrong? Why did you come looking for me early in the morning? The young warrior leaned aside and made a way at the door. Anyway, come in quickly first. Shannan, I'm here to ask you something. After asking, I'll leave and stay soon. This young warrior, known as Shannan by Qingdang, has the full name Shannan Jingzhu. He was a friend made by Yuanzhu Qingdang a year ago through various coincidences. Although we haven't known each other for a long time, for some reason they surprisingly got along well. In just 1 year, he and Yuanzhu Qingdang became extremely close friends. Do you have something to ask me? Shannan's face showed a hint of doubt. You can ask. Shannan, you are currently studying at the Little Chiba Sword Academy, right? Yes. Then I would like to ask you. Do the Zayakayanai Sword and Xuanwu Gymnasium often engage in swordsmanship exchanges with a testing and defense gym that teaches natural mind flow? The friend of Qingdang who is studying Beichen Idao flow at Zayakayanai Sword Academy is precisely this Shannan Jingzhu. Test Guard Hall. Shannan's slender eyebrows slightly raised. Why did you ask this? If we slowly explained one by one, it would take too much time, so Qingdang hesitated and once again said half truth and half falsehood. The world has been becoming increasingly unstable lately, and as an official responsible for catching thieves, I have become more and more hardworking. Therefore, I plan to study swordsmanship seriously to avoid being killed by some villains one day. I just heard someone introduce that the Trial Guard Hall is a good choice. Not only is the swordsmanship taught not flashy, but the relationship between the Sword Hall and the Xuanwu Hall of Beichen Idao Flow and the Zayakayanai Sword Hall is good. The 3 sword halls often gather together to exchange swordsmanship. So I was thinking of coming to confirm with you whether these things are true. Oh, I see. Shannan nodded gracefully, then the corner of his mouth slightly turned up, and a soft smile appeared on his face. These things are all true. Xuanwu Hall and the Little Chiba Sword Hall, where I am currently studying, do indeed frequently engage in swordsmanship exchanges with that Imperial Guard Hall. About 6 days ago, the talent from the Imperial Guards had just come to the Little Chiba Swordsmanship Hall, and we had a lively exchange of swordsmanship with the apprentices from the Imperial Guards Hall. I have also had the privilege of witnessing the heroic deeds of the disciples of the Imperial Guards several times with my own eyes. The person who introduced you to the testing hall is not empty. From my observation, natural mind flow is indeed a school with real skills, not just a superficial flower-style school. The sword wind is fierce, and the sword and blade are bleeding. In terms of practicality, I personally believe that the natural flow of reasoning is not inferior to the Beichen one-blade flow. Moreover, the teaching level of that testing center is also very good, and many apprentices inside have quite good abilities. Especially a young boy named Chongtian Zongxi, who has been praised by his master for his formidable strength and talent at a young age. Qingdang, if you want to learn swordsmanship with the goal of better subduing the petty thieves, then this testing hall is indeed a good place to go. Shannan's personality is clear to Qingdang. He is loyal, honest, and upright. It is impossible for him to lie to Qingdang, and he has no reason to lie to Qingdang. The identity of Shannan as a swordsmanship master makes his praise of the natural flow of mind particularly credible. As far as Qingdang knows, this mountain south has considerable expertise in swordsmanship. Qingdang, who is not skilled in swordsmanship, does not know exactly how strong he is, but he knows that Shannan has always been somewhat famous for his strength in the powerful Zayakayanai Sword Hall. Even Shannan, who was skilled in swordsmanship and had a reliable character, praised the practicality of the natural flow of mind. Qingdang's last doubts about the natural flow of mind and the testing hall dissipated in his heart. Qingdang, I can't believe that someone like you who has never been interested in swordsmanship would also want to go to a sword gym to learn swordsmanship one day. Shannan sighed with a joking tone and said seriously, the choice of a sword gym should not be careless. I also know of other sword houses with good levels here. If you're interested, I can introduce all these sword houses to you. Do you know many sword halls with excellent skills? Are there any sword halls among the ones you know that have the opportunity to compete with many, many people? For example, sword halls like Shiwei Hall that can compete with apprentices from Xuanwu Hall and Xiaqianai Sword Hall? Qingdang asked. It seems. Not really. Among the good sword halls I know, there are only a few hundred apprentices at most. Unless it's the kind of sword hall where we have a very good relationship, there is very little frequent communication between sword halls. Never mind, Qingdang raised his eyebrows and smiled towards Shannan. I have made up my mind. I want to go to the testing facility. Have you decided? Shannan let out a low exclamation, are you sure? Would it be too hasty for you to choose more carefully? No need, there shouldn't be a sword gym that suits me better than the Imperial Guards in Edo. I'll go to the Imperial Guards to pay my respects now. After speaking, Qingdang lifted his hands and vigorously patted Shannan's shoulders. Shannan, thank you. You've been a big help to me. I'll treat you to a drink when I have time later. Qingdang bid farewell to Shannan and then hurriedly left from the door of Shannan's house. Watching Qingdang appear unexpectedly and then leave in a hurry, Shannan smiled helplessly and said, it's really rare to say you invited me to drink. Qingdang was speeding down the street while taking out the paper that Tongsheng had just given him with the address of the testing facility from his pocket. He followed the address written on the paper and hurried forward. Since the doubts about the natural mind flow and the trial guard hall have dissipated, there is no need to hesitate more about choosing a sword hall. A sword hall that can compete with people from 3 sword halls in one breath. As Qingdang just said to Shannan. There should be no more suitable sword hall for Qingdang with a replication talent system in his body than this test guard hall. I hope to replicate some powerful talents as soon as possible after joining the trial guard hall. After silently praying in his heart, Qingdang quickened his running pace. The new book set sail. Seeking all kinds of support. The Japanese history classroom is now open, although during the Edo period, samurai could indeed use the privilege of disrespectful punishment to kill commoners who disrespected them. This privilege was not omnipotent. After using impolite punishment to kill commoners, warriors must have sufficient evidence to prove that the commoner you killed insulted you. If we can provide evidence, it will be easy to handle. The samurai has nothing to do. If no evidence is produced, the warrior will also be arrested for murder. So, many samurai would abandon impolite begging for the sake of trouble. End of this chapter.